Hey, I was just wanting to hop on here today, talk about a couple minutes about a couple things. Just some stuff I've been thinking about lately. As we approach the Christmas season, I've tried to spend a little more time thinking about the story of Jesus and his nativity and his birth and what all that stuff means to me, and just trying to really immerse myself in the story. And one of the things that came to my mind today that I was sort of thinking through is an aspect of the story that traditionally I guess I would skip over a little bit, and that's Matthew chapter 1, the genealogy of Jesus. But I think it's such a powerful thing, especially when you consider where it's situated in the story, right? Because it's the first passage of the New Testament. It's the introduction to the New Testament, the introduction to the gospel of Jesus, the story of Jesus. It's the first thing that we're given about Jesus. And I think that it sets the tone for what we should be reading, what the story is actually meant to tell us. The tone is set right there in the very first chapter, but it's so easy to miss. And particularly for me, what I'm thinking about is the women that are mentioned in the genealogies. So there's 5 women mentioned in that first genealogy there of Jesus, counting Mary. There's 4 women plus the mother Mary. Especially when you look at who they are and the way that they're inserted into the genealogy, it just sort of really, to me, emphasizes sets the stage for what the whole story is really about. So I thought we could just take a couple of minutes and talk through some of, talk through them and what they mean to me. So the first one that you come across is Tamar, who's her story's told in Genesis chapter 38. It's a pretty familiar story because it's kind of an odd one from our perspective in modern times. But to sum it up real quick, you can read it for yourself there. But she's a widow. She is sexually exploited by Onan, and then she's discarded and forgotten about by Judah until her story comes full circle, and that's how she's inserted into the genealogy of Jesus. So she is again a widow. She's been sexually exploited and forgotten about. Then you've got the second woman listed, which is Rahab. Everybody knows Rahab as the harlot, right? She's the prostitute. So what I think gets missed, and what I'm guilty of it, that I had missed in the past, is although is framing Rahab as the harlot as though it's just her living a sinful life. But I think what gets missed in that is that, but generally speaking, most people who live that lifestyle don't do so out of for love of the game, so to speak. They do so out of a need to survive. They're pushed to that in order to survive. It's a survival mechanism, right? So from that aspect, even Rahab is a victim. She's a victim of situation and circumstances that has to do what she has to do to survive. And yet her name is forever memorialized in the story. The next one is Ruth. Ruth is probably the most well-known. She has a whole book in the Bible named after her, but it's also the most explicit to see just how controversial it is for her to be plugged into this genealogy, because she was a Moabite. The Moabites were foreigners, and then particularly Moabite women. You can look at, I think it's Numbers 25 that really talks about the view of Moabite women intermingling and having relations with the Israelite men. It was very frowned upon. It was not acceptable, just absolutely not acceptable. And so that is part of the genealogy of Jesus. And then the fourth woman is Bathsheba. It specifically says in that genealogy, the wife of Uriah, even calling Uriah's name back up, because Bathsheba was exploited by David. She was objectified by David. Her husband was murdered. Her son died. She was a woman through no, or at least as the story's told, through no fault of her own. She suffered all of these horrific, painful circumstances, and so that is also one of the names listed in the genealogy of Jesus. And then, of course, the fifth one is Mary, Jesus' mother, Mary, who was an unwed teen mom. I think that speaks for itself. But the reason why all of that resonates with me and is so, I think, so powerful is because right off the bat, it's radical, man. Like, it's radical enough, I think it's easy to see that women are included because every other name in there is men. It's man, 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 and then every once in a while you'll get these women injected in. And that's typically how these genealogies go. That it's focused on the man and the man's name. So the fact that these women are inserted in there at all is radical enough. But when you look at the individual stories of these women, it really sets the tone for what the gospel's about. Because Jesus is descended from the widow. He's descended from the foreigner. He's descended from the outcast. He's descended from the ostracized, the marginalized. Those are the names of the people that he's descended from. It really, to me, almost speaks to, because we all know that Jesus is for the ostracized and the foreigner and the widow and the poor and all of this stuff. But the fact that he descends from a line of those people almost speaks to the fact that even before his incarnation, even before his birth, it's just baked into the DNA of who Jesus was and is. So I think that it sets a radical tone for the way that we should be reading the gospel, that it's upside down. It's the upside down kingdom. It's obvious through all the whole gospel accounts, to me at least, but the thing is always upside down. We think about power in worldly terms, and we think about royal lineages, right? Royal lineages, you think about the way that we would think about a royal lineage is through these, we would want to upplay how powerful and regal and how wonderful this bloodline is. But the genealogy of Jesus intentionally plugs in women, foreigners, widows, sex workers, just anything that you can think of there, man. And it's just, to me, that's pretty cool. I think it's a pretty cool thing. I'm no scholar. I'm just a normal dude. So maybe there's nothing to it, but it speaks something to me, and I'm sure that there's a lot more to it. I'm just kind of riffing right now. I had a couple of little notes because I didn't want to freeze up and forget the names or anything. But I'm just kind of going off of memory with some of this stuff. So I'm sure that there's far more people who's done a lot more into it, but I just think that was a pretty cool thing. So hopefully you thought it was pretty cool too.